"Too late! Here he comes!" whispered Jake as he dove into the nearest bush, cutting his argument with Denny off just as it got heated. For Jake, switching places with Denny, his lookalike, had been a no-brainer. It got him away from his abusive mother. Life in Denny's home had been a vast improvement. For Denny, however, the deal wasn't as lucrative, and he wanted out. However, with Jake's father, Fred Smith, striding across the schoolyard to Denny, Jake hid, hoping to leave the matter in Fred's hands. Jake dove into the nearest bush as Fred saw Denny, and assuming Denny was Jake, grabbed him by the shoulders. "Jake," said Fred breathlessly, "you really need to stop running off. I'll have someone watch you all the time if you can't stop wandering away. I know you wouldn't like that, but what you're doing isn't safe, son." Fred hugged the boy to him and expressed genuine emotion. "Jake, I love you more than anyone in the whole world. I don't know what I'd do if anything happened to you. Please, no more of this, huh?" "Sorry, Dad," answered Denny, saying what he knew Jake would be expected to say. Denny turned around to see Jake hiding in the bushes and instantly knew that the boy's chance to switch back had been foiled, and that he'd have to pretend to be Jake for a while longer. But as he looked at Fred in front of him, Denny's mind focused on the boy's newly agreed plan of action to matchmake Denny's mom, Quinn, with Jake's dad, Fred, so that they could all live together. Denny began pondering how they could accomplish this as he dutifully accompanied Fred Smith back to the penthouse. Jake, meanwhile, felt a pang of guilt as he emerged from the bushes and watched his father walk away with Denny. He knew he shouldn't have run away and that Denny had wanted to switch back to his old life. And Jake did actually miss his father, Fred. But he couldn't. He just couldn't bring himself to go back home just yet. His newly acquired mother, Quinn, was just too wonderful to leave behind. Jake liked having a sister, too. And he absolutely loved going to a real school. But before he could dwell on his decision any longer, he was interrupted. "Oh, Denny, there you are. I was just about to head to the school," sighed Quinn, running up to who she thought were Denny and Sammy, a bit out of breath. "Sorry, Mom," began Jake. Sammy rolled her eyes, irritated that the dumb boys had just messed up the plan to switch them back to their rightful places. Jake just shrugged. He'd explain things to Sammy later. For now, he needed to go back to playing along. "That was quite the ordeal," began Quinn. "I'm not spending even one more minute thinking about that awful Fred Smith today. Let's forget about it and do something fun. How was school? Who wants ice cream?" "Yay, we do!" cried the children, each holding one of Quinn's hands and skipping toward the ice cream truck up the path. Meanwhile, Beatrice was across town, leaving an exclusive spa dressed to the nines in a designer outfit that she knew would stop Fred dead in his tracks. She was going to go and make up with Fred. It was her last chance. This bratty kid was not going to come between Beatrice and her husband's millions. She simply wouldn't allow it. And if she had to get a complete makeover to entice Fred back, so what? He would be paying for that, just like he paid for everything else during their entire marriage. A marriage based on lies. And Beatrice had no time to waste. She needed to win Fred back before he realized her many deceptions and left her and her mother penniless. Beatrice had the limousine stop in front of the skyscraper housing the penthouse she and Fred had once called home. Why can't it just be Fred and me, she thought desperately. This kid, Jake, who was driving her bonkers, was the reason she had been able to entice Fred to marry her. Therefore, she would have to make an effort to get along with the boy. But he was such a nuisance and so badly behaved. Eventually, Beatrice planned to convince Fred to send the child away to military boarding school. But not yet. For now, she needed to save her marriage and protect her money, she thought, inhaling deeply as she looked up at the beautiful, clear sky. She was busy summoning every ounce of her strength until… "Nice," crowed a man riding past on a bicycle, noticing Beatrice's eye-catching attire and breaking her calm. Beatrice narrowed her eyes and shouted, "Get bent, creep!" You see, when it came down to it, Beatrice was just a regular New Yorker and not really high society at all. But it was time for her to assume her trophy wife's identity once more, if she hoped to keep it. Beatrice made sure her hat was fixed at the exact right angle and walked through the revolving doors with her head held high. "I'm sorry, ma'am," interrupted the security guard behind the desk when he saw Beatrice approach the elevators. "I'll need you to wait here. I've been given strict orders not to admit you to the penthouse anymore." Beatrice's mouth fell open wide. "What?" she yelled. "That's preposterous. Do you know who I am?" Beatrice felt that maybe if she caused enough of a scene, the guard would relent, just so that the others in the lobby wouldn't be disturbed. Beatrice didn't care about saving face right now. All she cared about was getting back together with Fred. "Yes, ma'am," answered the guard. "I am Mrs. Fred Smith. He's the CEO of Rex Corp, and I'll have your badge for this. Let me up to my home this instant." The security guard froze. If he let the woman up, Fred Smith would have him fired for sure. If he didn't let the woman up, she would likely also have him fired. These rich people, he thought. They think they can have whatever they want, whenever they want. "Mrs. Smith," began the guard, "I'm terribly sorry. Let me call upstairs for you. I'm sure we can work something." The guard stopped mid-sentence as Beatrice had just stomped away toward the elevator. He watched the edge of her houndstooth cape flutter as she rounded the corner out of sight. He sighed. This was not going to end well, no matter what he did next.
Hi, Quinn here, and if you're wondering what happens next, click on the link in the description to listen to the full audio series. You can also watch the next episode here in the playlist.